Good morning, good morning, good morning. Yep, I was waiting till you were finished saying your goodbyes. Hold on.
Hey, what did we turn down with volume?
I turned down my phone for the live,
I'm good.
so there's no echo.
Perfect. Hey, that's what I was going to ask you. When this goes, because maybe you have this answer. So we're live on YouTube. Can our viewers only see us live now? Does it automatically plug then to our channels?
Yeah, to my knowledge,
Because I did not
it's.
find it. I'm curious about that.
I'll look at it after.
Okay.
We'll look at it after this one.
Okay.
See what happens to it.
All right. Let's.
Oh, let me hit record.
All right. We in?
Yes, sir.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Framing New Heights podcast. Hey, get ready, y'all, to strap in because today Coach Tone and I are going to blast through some barriers that hold you back. So crush those pesky procrastination demons and skyrocket our productivity to unimaginable heights, such as Framing New Heights. Welcome to another episode. Coach Michael is in the house. Coach Tone, what do you got for him today?
What's up? What's going on, everybody? Good morning, and thank you for joining. We're going to talk about procrastination, man. And I think that's one of the biggest things that hold us back from hitting our goals and making progress in life, right?
Oh,
and of course, a lot of things that come along with that are motivation. And I don't know, man. I think the first thing I want to talk about when it comes to procrastination, I've been guilty of it. You know, it's funny. Whenever I find myself procrastinating, I remember when I was a kid that I don't know about you, but did your mom ever say if you'd have already gotten it, you'd be done by now if you'd have gotten to it already.
Yeah,
But if you're sitting here arguing with me, hemming and hawing, you're sitting here
Yeah.
thinking about it and complaining, whatever the case is, you'd be done already if you'd have just got to it. Right. And that's whatever comes to mind nowadays whenever I find myself procrastination or thinking about something. Like it could be something like the dishes, that I don't, or just something that I don't want to do, you know. But if I'd have just gotten to it, it's done in 5 minutes if you just do it. But you spend a half an hour fighting back against yourself, whatever the case is, weighing your options or doing whatever. What do you think?
Yeah, it's kind of like that saying that goes, I'll just do it later. Oh, I'll just start tomorrow, right? How many of you have ever heard that or said that? Or, but here's the thing. I think you're truly in the right place to start now. So today, Tone, we've got strategies, we've got tips, and we got just sheer enthusiasm to turn those excuses into actionable steps that'll make you, like you said, consistent, motivated. So I want to start off by talking about this. For those of you guys that are live or where you're at today, do you constantly feel overwhelmed because you just have like too many tasks to complete each day? And like how do some people finish their to-do lists despite working the same amount of hours in a week? Because as we've alluded to in previous podcasts, there are 168 hours in an actual week to be exact. And Tone, today we're going to discuss the secrets. And I'm thinking let's kind of dive in and because here's my entire thought process on this. So I think with procrastination, you got to begin by using a term that I call like you got to set the table. And here's what I mean. So it's about like determining what you want to accomplish and clarifying specific goals and objectives. All right. So the first step is vital if you truly want to seek any type of productivity in your life. Like, here's the simple process because it'll allow you to work faster and achieve more when you know where you're exactly going. And then the key, though, is then your end game, right? So procrastination sets in, you guys, when you have unclear expectations about what you truly want to accomplish. What do you think about that, Tone? Because I will tell you this previous weekend, we just alluded to this earlier. My room just had a leak. There was like we had to tear out the carpet. Like there was so much stuff. I had a lot of work last week up front that I had to do. Well, it took 3.5 weeks. All of her stuff's in my dining room, in her living room. Now I knew the goal, the end goal, but I couldn't set up actionable steps because I relied on someone else. So I guess I'm saying all that because sometimes we get overwhelmed with so many things that are going on in that situation. And I talked to you about this before we started. So got new hardwood floors. I'm not going to mention the company that I worked with because they were not very good, but it took them like 3 no-shows to finally come out. I had to basically walk them into my daughter's room to get it done. They finally got it done. Then that night I had to take all of her stuff. Now, mind you, and Tony, you saw my daughter's room. She's got like a castle that I built for her inside the room. So I had to take all that apart, then screw it back in. Anyway, so I say all that because sometimes it can be very overwhelming. And I think if we truly have unclear expectations, we tend to procrastinate. What do you think, Tone?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. When we talked about clarity, I think is the main thing right there, is because as we talked about in the last couple episodes, last couple weeks, is clarity is one of the pillars of high performance, right? And it's very hard to operate if you're not clear on where to go or what you should be doing on the journey of where to go. And I think it's also important to understand as well, like when you have those situations, like you mentioned, with the mold and the water and things like that, and the hardwood floors, like those are some things that are just outside of your control,
Thank you.
right?
Yeah.
And so there's a difference between procrastination and meeting delays or
Mhm.
obstacles or barriers that are really outside your control. Because if there are other
Mhm.
people, like you're not a floor guy, you're not a mold guy, you are relying on outside resources in order to get these tasks done. So one of the things that I've learned, that I've practiced and implemented in my life, is I can only control what I can control. You've just got to control the controllables. And so it's, what can you do? And as soon as you can take a task or whatever steps you can, as far as you can, then you just shift and you say, like, you know what, well, this is as far as I can go right now. And then move on
And accept it.
and
Yeah.
accept it. And then all you can do is all you can do. And all you can do is enough. I don't remember who said that, but that's one of the phrases that comes to mind. Now, I think it's helpful in this case then too, if we're clarifying between meeting delays from outside sources or circumstances and actual procrastination. Let's, like we always do. Let's define procrastination real
Yeah.
quick.
Get in. Go. Yeah.
Simply, procrastination is just the act of delaying or postponing tasks or actions that need to be accomplished, and that's a you thing,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? And now to go back to your original point, when you have all these different steps or tasks or to dos, whatever the case is, yeah, that can absolutely be overwhelming. Um, it's like just looking at the mountain. I've got this mountain of stuff to do, and it seems like I'll never get it done. It's
Yeah.
just so much, and then you're like, well, I have this and I have this, and that's why we talk about prioritization and all these other things that come into case too. It's also, I think, helpful to identify what you don't need to do, or
Yeah.
what you
Yeah.
need, or what you need to stop doing,
Yep. Yep. Yep.
right?
And then yeah. Yeah.
And
And go ahead.
that can provide clarity right there. And then you just take one small step. And I think another thing that to just wrap this little point up is, regardless of how far you might think you are from the end result that you're looking for, is I
Mm.
think we have to set up a reward system along the way too, once we do start acting. So it's like, if you take one positive move in the direction that you need to go, give yourself some credit for that and
Mm.
set up a positive reward system so it feels good taking those actions. So one of the things that I was looking at this week is that one of the causes of procrastination is a lack of motivation. And all human behavior can be basically bookended. We've probably talked about this many times before, between pain and pleasure. We're either doing something to avoid pain or we're doing something to gain pleasure. And oftentimes, if we're not taking action, if we're procrastinating and we're not doing what we need to be doing, we're basically saying the pain of taking action and moving forward is greater than the pain of me not acting. And so I'm just not going to
Mm.
act. And I don't have the
Mm.
motivation, the gumption, so to speak, to actually move forward. What do you think?
Yeah, and I think on top of that too, and that's really well said. I think you want to, and we talk about this so much, and I know you do it part of your program. I do it personally, but I think you got to take your thoughts and you got to line them with your goals and then write them down either in a script or a journal. Because what this does then, this support will help you fight against procrastination and by activating your creativity and releasing energy to accomplish those specific goals, right? So, like for example, remember your day should be well scripted to have clear direction for what you will do. Each day, you should really script it out. I know you do an amazing job at this, probably way better than I do. Because here's the thing: when you know what to expect from yourself, you'll be able to meet those expectations, right? And here's another thing too, Tone. And we talk about this. There's a remember this principle in the gym. It was called the 80-20 principle in fitness. Remember this?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, but there's a 80-20 principle even with procrastination. Because here's the thing: you only need you need only 20% of your effort to produce 80% of your results. So, for example, 20% of your customers create 80% of your sales. You can apply this rule then to everything, even including those daily tasks, but you should start by writing them down.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's the Pareto principle, 80-20.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
you can apply it pretty much to any area of life.
And you can have like a list of even 10 jobs demanding like the equal time. Like, but just pick two. And you talked about this earlier. You pick two that provide the greatest value. All right. And then you arrange that list based on the importance to begin with that first item. Then, even if you struggle completing the list, but what you have accomplished will compensate for you and yourself for others as well. So here's exactly what I mean. So if you prioritize tasks, you'll be able to tackle the most important ones from the beginning. And then if you have enough time, you get to those that are less urgent. So have you ever heard of the saying, Tone, eat the frog? Have you ever heard of this saying?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's a pretty common phrase in the sales realm, right? And
Yeah.
it's usually referred to doing your cold calls or your prospecting early. You basically it just goes to do the hardest, most undesirable thing first and get it out of the way.
Yep. Yep.
You know,
So it's go ahead, finish, go.
most of us tend to put the most difficult thing at the end because we procrastinate on it because it's the least pleasant thing to do, right? Or it could be something like sending out that unpleasant email that you have to respond to. It could be, whatever the most difficult thing that you can think of through the day. Just get it out of the way because that's what we end up spending so much time on, doing these little menial tasks that don't move the needle,
Yeah.
but they give us those dopamine hits that we talk about because we feel like we're doing something good, but then the thing that we should be doing never gets done because we put it off and put it off and put it off because we're like, I just don't want to do
Yeah, and exactly what you said, and yeah, I knew you know that off the top of your head.
it.
So, but here's the deal, because complex and demanding tasks, you guys, for those of you that are listening or catching us on the live stream, often bring the most significant rewards too. So seek those out first and then get them done, which we talked about. Because here's the thing: the excitement about getting them completely will fuel you into fulfill that task that you need. The simple rule is prioritize and execute, because it's vital to hold on to those feelings of satisfaction when you complete something, because it's important to embrace that. Don't you agree, Tone? Because yeah, it makes you feel good about yourself, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, there's been a lot of books written on this, and one of them comes to mind is it's literally titled "Do Hard Things." And by
Mm,
doing the difficult things,
yep.
you're going to build more courage and confidence. Let me rephrase that. You're going to build more confidence because of the courage it takes to do the difficult, hard thing
Yep.
than you will from doing the little menial, you know, anybody can do this type of task, right?
Hmm.
You're going to get more return as from a growth standpoint, you as a person, by tackling those things that are more difficult.
Yeah, and then on top of that, like too, because once you do that, you get this sense of feeling of improvement. You talked
Hmm.
about this early motivation, and then what does that do? It creates that momentum, which we talked about before we went on the air. It enhances efficiency and keeps that productive juices like just flowing. And I want to think about this too for a second, Tone. We've all done jigsaw puzzles, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we're looking for jigsaw puzzles, what's generally the first thing when you got this 5,000 pieces of
Hmm.
jigsaw puzzle? The first thing you guys always look for is what? What do we look for? We
I
look
can't.
for the whole picture, right?
Oh well, yeah, yeah. Of
Yeah,
course, you're
yeah.
gonna look at the front of the box or whatever the case is.
And it's only a few pieces at a time. So think about where you'd like to be, for example, in a few years.
Hmm.
What are the things that that will get you there? And then answering those basic simple questions, Stone, will help you plan for your journey more effectively. And you alluded to this. You laughing. You're laughing because you're like, yes, yes.
No, no, I've never had that. I've never heard that analogy before, and I think it's great because
Okay, okay.
what comes to mind for that is okay. So you've got your puzzle, you've got your
Stone, I got you
um,
muted.
oh
I
shit.
lost you. You muted. There you go.
Okay, cool.
Go.
No,
Yep.
okay, sorry. So basically, I've never connected these dots specifically before, but you talk about, you look at the big picture first when you're starting your puzzle. You're looking
Yep.
at the box or whatever. You're looking at the finished product. So I've heard this so many times, and I love it. You begin with the end in mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Begin with the end in mind, and then you reverse engineer it.
Yep.
And then I can't speak. I don't know what anybody else's strategy might be, but my strategy for puzzle pieces is to find the corners and the borders and do the borders first and then start filling everything else out in from there. So basically you just find a framework that works for you and put together a strategy on how to put this puzzle together. And we're using this obviously as an analogy for life. You might have this 5,000, 10,000 piece puzzle that's like monumental, but you have a framework that you can apply it to a small puzzle, the small tasks, the small pieces of life, or you have a framework that can still be applied to the bigger situations as well too. I think that's pretty pretty interesting nugget to take from this for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, and I want to go back to you and talk to a real cool strategy for everybody, and I want to go and dive it. It's called the ABCDE method, and you alluded to this, and I don't know if you knew the name of it, but the truth is, we are unlikely to be able to complete every single task in a given day. We're human, you guys. It's just we're
Mhm.
not gods. Okay, some of us may think we are, but we're not. We're just humanly made,
Some
right?
of us are built like one.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Touche, touche. So, but here's the thing: for you all have to let something go, and this is where you can procrastinate on less essential tasks, which you talked about.
Mhm.
But if you choose to procrastinate on your small, non-crucial activities, you'll find yourself more successful than if you decide to procrastinate on the essentials, valuing added once. And so it's natural to not do everything you want. Like there's always going to be a lack of something somewhere, you guys. There's always going to be like, how many of you hear Tone all the time? Oh, I just don't got enough time. Oh man, I'm so tired. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough resources. Well, the human nature, it's also in our human nature to set unrealistic goals from time to time. And that's where, like yourself, a high quality coach comes in handy to help you be effective. So let me break down the ABC method here really quick, Tone. So it's number one, you guys, itemize the jobs you must accomplish, right? And then give them labels A, B, C, D, E. A represents what you must complete today, and then sometimes more than one task falls in this category. So label those maybe like a subcategory like A1, A2, and then finally then move on to the letter only after completing the A categories. What do you think about that, Tom?
I've heard that before. Maybe not so exactly put like that, but I think it's really helpful to outline those type of things. What are your must dos? And we've talked about this before in others conversations about then you take all of those things. It's about focus, right? You take all of those things, maybe one or two things at a time. Probably, I would just say one thing, not maybe, just one thing at a time. Take it as far as you can, and then move on to the next one, and then move on to the
Mhm.
next one, and then move on to the next one, and then you do
Yep. Yep.
your grade two or your B class tasks as well. And what comes to mind as well on this is what too is, if you listen to like Andy Frisella, you've got a he's got a method of prioritizing as well. And basically, I'm going to butcher this, but the thing is, the concept is, what are the top five tasks that you need to get completed on a given day in order for that to be a success? As long as you knock these five tasks out, then you can count the day a win. And In another area, there's what's called a MAV plus and a MAV minus method. And I don't know if you might be familiar with this one or not, but
Go on that. Let me hear it.
basically you're setting your top and your bottom levels of acceptable value for the day. What I mean by that, maximum acceptable value, MAV plus, right, is you say, what would be the best possible outcome for today to be the most amazing day ever? What would be the best possible outcome? And you can use this at work, you can use this on sales calls, you can use this in a lot of different areas. Is what if I'm looking at a task or something, what's the best possible outcome I can hope to achieve for the day to be considered a win? Now, you can also set the MAV minus, which is your minimum standards, your minimum acceptable value. What's the minimum I'm willing to accept in this circumstance or today in order for it to still be considered a win? And the reason why this is beneficial and why it works is because we're training our brain. A lot of times when we don't get what we want, the outcome we desire, we look at it as a loss or a failure. But when we do this, we can know our parameters of what's acceptable on top and bottom, and we can start training our brains to always be looking at wins. Does that make sense?
It totally does, and it brings me to another way, because it I don't know. Have you ever heard of the law of three, which is another way to remove procrastination? Did you ever hear of the law of three?
I'm not sure.
So these tasks. Well, first of all, let me backtrack. So the law of three states that you must select three duties most important to either your organization's productivity or yourself. So these tasks must take up 80% of your time on an individual level. The three key area results in your life should require the utmost attention. Here they are. The three. For those of you that are taking notes, here we go. It's family, and this is priority, right? Family, health, career, right? So then you evaluate your performance in these three areas. And then here's the key. Where are you the weakest? What do you need to start doing to fortify those weak points? And then for each area, again, scripting, writing down, write a goal you seek to achieve. And then focus on that goal until it's complete. Because when you set out to work, what you do is you ensure you spend the time actually working. So how many often times do you guys do this? Tone, you're really good at this. I'm just gonna tell you. When Tone's working, I just wanted to go live with him like yesterday. This dude has his do not disturb on his door at home. He's got his do not disturb on his cell phone. There's no way you can get a hold of this guy when he's working, you guys. And kudos to all the clients that are working with him, because this dude knows how to do it really, really well. So you got to avoid distractions, because for you to not procrastinate. Am I right, Tone?
Fact of life, dude. You can, and I appreciate you for the kudos. Um, it's just implementing actions that I learned from other high performers and coaches as well. And I know there's some like I've implemented this as well. I don't take unscheduled phone calls except for very few core people. I'll have to call you back. I'm sorry. Because I got to focus.
He's even got to call me back, you guys. He's got even the do not disturb with me. So just imagine that.
Blanket policy. But but the thing, no, you're absolutely right. It's about focus and distraction. We talked about that before. You've got to develop the focus muscle and minimize distractions in your environment, and do what you can to stay on task, to stay on point, because it's about momentum at that point as well. And when you're focused, you literally are. It's that there's a phrase called being laser focused, and when you're focused in, you can basically bore a hole, so to speak, in your goals and in your day. Those distractions are ridiculous, and I don't get me wrong, I still get caught up in it too. I have my that's why I put my do not disturb on us. The phone will go off, the buzzer hits, or I'll imagine it goes off. You ever have that phantom buzz in your pocket? You think your phone went off.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, you're on freaking Facebook scrolling in the black pit of death, so to speak.
Doom.
Just stuck in scrolling land, you know. But I think it's important to ask yourself some questions when you're overcoming procrastination. That why is it you got to? There's a book out there called Start with Why. and by Simon Sinek, right? And it's you've got your end in mind, right? You've got your end result in mind. It's like, why is this important that I need to do this task? You've got to try and assign a importance even to the menial small tasks that might fit the bigger picture, like we talked about. Why is this task that's boring and mundane important to the end result that I'm trying to achieve? And that's where a lot of people get tripped up. We want to do the flashy stuff. We want to do the crossover dribbles and the fancy dunks or whatever the case is on game time and the bright lights. But the thing is, those things are mastered by the fundamentals and the repetitive, mundane, unpretty, unattractive tasks and actions that we have to take. So you've got to find the why and how it fits into the bigger picture. Why is it important and what's going to happen if I do this task? This is going to lead to this. What's the ripple effect, the butterfly effect? It's going to be able to cause this. It's going to cause this. It's going to cause this. And then ask yourself too, what happens if I don't do this task?
Good. Yeah, this is good stuff, you guys.
What's the ripple effect of me not taking action and procrastinating?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, and that's so well said. And I think a lot of us don't know, Tone, how to manage our chores to make them more meaningful. So, like, and then when we are in that state, we, like, a lot of us may feel inadequate, or we lack self-confidence or even confidence or incompetence in specific areas, then which that I think lead to procrastination. And here's what I'm saying: like, if you want to develop your professional skills and really help your productivity, you got to change these three things, you guys. You got to devote 1 hour each day to a field of specific learning. Here's what I mean. And Tone, you're amazing at this. All right. And I think as coaches, I think we really hone in on this. But uh, here it is: attend training sessions and workshops and webinars. You need that. If Coach Tone is doing a webinar and he's got a live session, you guys, that's an opportunity for you to fill the field of specific learning that you're lacking, right? And here's a big thing that I do, Tone, which I think is key. I've got a long drive, and now with construction now that I deal with every single day in the morning, when you're commuting time, you need to sharpen your mind, you guys. And don't listen to music. I listen to podcasts, I listen to audiobooks, and I'm not necessarily reading, but I'm listening to the audiobook in my morning drive, because I can have sometimes up to a 45-minute drive, even up to 50 minutes. And you guys, that's the key to beating procrastination, because I really hone in on areas that I'm really weak on, so that I can get rid of the procrastination and stay in that I call, you alluded to it earlier. I'm just going to add another word to it. I call it focus motivation, Tone. And you know what you know what I mean, Mike, by that?
Yeah,
Like, it's like,
absolutely.
yeah, go.
And I don't even think you really need, and I can piggyback on that. I think that's great that you do that. And that's a practice I've implemented as well too. Is that you can literally, most of us spend, I think, like on average 2 hours a day in traffic in commuting over the course of a year. And yeah, you hit it. You're like, my commute can be 45 minutes over the course of a year. That essentially is enough time for you to get a degree.
Wow, that's brilliant. I love it.
If you just zoom out a little bit and you that compounding effect and the consistency of the time of just an hour a day each way, whatever the case is. And what's funny is you talk about the 1% better every day. And I love your live to be fit, the 1% better every day, mind, body, spirit, right?
Oh, and by the
That
way, can I just give you a shout out? Thank you, because I saw you post a gym selfie and you just titled it 1%.
mhm.
I saw that. That was dope, bro.
I was channeling Coach Mike when I did that.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
And here's the deal. There's another phrase out there. Like, okay, let's look at this. If you start today and you commit to 1% better every day,
Mm.
you mentioned just an hour a day, which I think is great because that's only 4% of your day, right? 1% better every day will make you 37 times better at the end of a year. If you stretch it out for a year, 37 times better at whatever skill, task, hobby, development, whatever you're looking at. 37 times better over the course of a year. There's another field of thought or data out there that if you spend 18 minutes a day over the course of a year, you'll be better than 95% of your peers in this area. Basically speaking, 18 minutes a day is 1% of your day. 18 minutes a day, 1% a day over the course of a year makes you 37 times better and 90 better than 95% of your peer groups or competitors in this arena, whatever your focus is. So think about that.
Yeah, it goes down to this, you guys. You have to take care of yourself. You'll be able to work harder and longer if you're not exhausted and malnourished. Because what'll happen is you're gonna hit a progress hitting brick wall because you're constantly making mistakes. I'll tell you guys a story really quick. And Tony, we alluded to it earlier. So my daughter's got this castle that I've made for her, blah 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 blah. Well, I had to take it out and I had to put it back in. So after working a long day, I had to come home. I had to, mind you, I had to screw all these pieces together. So I did. I got everything in by myself. Did it all by myself. But mind you, I didn't eat. I didn't. I was just. I had the focus, the horse blinds on, and so I'm putting the bed together, and now to put the top piece on. Well, guess what? I put it on backwards. I made a mistake. And you know why I made a mistake?
Mm-hmm.
Because I was exhausted. I was malnourished. I didn't eat because I was just, I'm going to grind. I'm going to grind. I'm going to grind. I'm going to grind. So it goes back to you guys. You're going to make a lot of mistakes and you're going to procrastinate a lot more, especially if you're not taking care of yourself. You know what I mean, Tone?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Oh.
It's, yeah, absolutely. It's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. And we're all guilty of this, making mistakes, procrastinations. We're not always motivated. We talk about this all the time. I don't want to do things all the time. I've been inconsistent in my life before. We're everybody's got their shit. Everybody deals with their own shit, right? And the reason why I'm saying this is that when it comes to those objections and those excuses, like I don't have time to take care of myself. I don't have time for this. I don't have whatever the case is. I'm putting off my self care, right? Your excuses should be the reasons why you need to do something.
Mm.
If I take care of myself, because all right, so let's say work and business is my focus. I gotta grind. I gotta grind. I gotta grind. I gotta grind. Like you had just mentioned, I'll take care of myself later. What happens is the opposite ends up happening. Like you had just mentioned, I become less effective at what I'm trying to do. So my goal result that I'm focused on with great intentions to become more effective and grind and do whatever is there. So I'm putting myself on the back burner. What ends up happening is that because we put ourselves on the back burner, I become less effective in moving forward on what I'm trying to accomplish. So if you flip that, I need to take care of myself because that will allow me to grind better. And you end up not grinding, you end up flowing because, like you had mentioned, you're more focused, you're more sharp, you're more effective, you feel better. You're in a more you're in peak state is basically what it's kind of referred to. That's what I take from what your comment was. Am
Yeah,
I hitting the nail on the head?
no, you have 100%. And there's another tactic you guys out there called chunking. Tony, did you ever hear about this called chunking? So you basically take, you identify components of the job and you just break them down into manageable pieces. So it's like
Hmm.
focusing on a chunk at a time will help you feel like a sense of progress. I talked about this encouraging, and you'll continue the entire finish the completed task. So here's the
Hmm.
thing: you talked about motivation. Humans feel motivated when they achieve any type of goal, which you talked about earlier, which I love. And it doesn't matter how
Hmm.
big or small, because motivation is vital for continuous improvement. And you can complete any specific job, any particular time. Because think about this. I think a good example of this is eating a plate of food and you consume it, what is it, one scoop at a time. And like each mouthful of food is ground to digestible form into the entire body to perform the energy that you need. You know what I mean? Like I think
Yeah.
chunking is critical, you guys, because it almost gains like a strategy of like momentum principle of success, right? Where
Hmm.
it basically says that consistent movement creates the momentum needed for efficient goal achievement. And you talked about that. I don't know if we talked about it in the pod or not sometimes, but you talked about momentum. Like you have some momentum. There's some things going on. And that's generally the challenging part to start anything is like you got to get the momentum. But once the momentum goes, the motivation kicks in because you start seeing these
Mhm.
small tasks that you chunked in creates a smoother and flow, like you stated. I love what you said, the flow state.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my mindset is it's what I've learned is that it's easier to keep momentum than it is to build it. So it's so important, like you had mentioned, to keep taking that continuous action. So you call it chunking, I call it micro goals. And I think
Okay.
we're talking about the same thing. And
Yep.
this is something that I learned when I was training for the service was when I had to run. I didn't enjoy running and I wasn't good at it. And I think that's part of it too, is that I didn't enjoy it because I wasn't good at it. But then once I got good at it by taking the continuous action, I actually started to enjoy it because I broke through that period of discomfort and the man, it's gonna suck and I hate it. I'm out of shape and I'm winded and my cardio's trash, whatever. But basically, what how I view chunking or micro goals, or when I learned about it, was that if I had 6 or 10 miles to run, if I focus on the fact that I had 6 or 10 more miles to go,
Mhm.
compared to like where I'm at when I'm gassed, it sucks, it hurts. You just take that 10 miles that you have to go. I still use this to this day on the Spartan course. Is I'm just going to get to that next light pole.
I love it.
I'm just going to get to that next street, to that next bush that's 10 feet ahead. And you just keep looking a little bit ahead, a little bit ahead. And I've done this on when I'm hiking mountains too. When I'm going up the 14ers, if you're not from Colorado, a 14er is a mountain that's anything above 14,000 feet, right? And it gets tough when you're at the top and you want to take a break. You want to sit down. You want to quit sometimes. I think about quitting all the time, but you just have to keep going. And one of the practices that I've put in place is that, like, man, that looks like a good place to sit. I bet there's a better place up ahead though.
Oh,
And then I get to that one and I'm like, I bet there's still a better place up ahead.
yeah.
I bet there's a better place ahead. And so while you're chunking, that's my form of chunking.
I love
Is
it.
setting those micro goals. And then before you know it,
Mhm.
as you mentioned, you finished the plate. In my frame of vision, I'm at the top of the mountain. And all I did was just keep going a little bit further, a little bit further. And Ed Milet, if any of our listeners are not familiar with Ed Milet, check him out.
As I
He's a
follow.
he's a icon in business and growth and personal development, motivational speaking and things like that. He was thinking about quitting when he started out 20, 30 years ago, whenever it was when he's starting out on his path. And his dad was uh, a recovering alcoholic,
Mhm.
right? And his
Yep.
dad asked him
Yep.
one day, and he said, are you thinking about quitting? And Ed Milet responded back, he's like, yeah, I'm thinking about quitting. And his dad said, how about you just don't quit for one more day?
Every day.
Just one more day. Just commit to today
Mhm.
if you have to. That
I love
today
it.
I'm going to keep going. And I'll worry about tomorrow when I get there. And even from a biblical standpoint, it tells us to take no worry on the morrow. If
Ah,
you're Christian, it says don't worry about tomorrow. And let go of the past. Forgive yourself of the past too. Even if you procrastinated yesterday, today commit to taking action.
I
Right.
tone that's so beautifully said, and I appreciate you bringing him in because, yeah, he's a big influencer of me. I follow a lot of his stuff, and he's got some really strong content. If you guys like what we say and stuff too, he's another one to follow. But I want to go on this tone.
Mhm.
Have you ever, like a lot of us, have you ever procrastinated on a task until the last possible minute? I know I right. I remember when I was in grad school,
Mhm.
literally every Monday I had to have a 10-page paper done, and I would wait because I was all about football. Sunday football, I'd watch football. Then at 6 o'clock at night, I would do this 10-page paper, and I'll forget that.
Yep.
Um,
That was the
you know,
same. I was the same way all through school, and
yeah,
I would wait till the very last possible second to hand in my paper or to get it done or to hand it in. And how I look at that now in hindsight is that we created the conditions and the circumstances to where we had no choice but to act.
that's what.
And
Yeah,
and then what would happen is I do well on it. And so what that did was it created a belief system that I work well under pressure. How many of us have said that? I work well under pressure. That's why I leave these tasks off to the very end, right? And so it creates this belief system that I work well under pressure, and it's the stories that we tell ourselves. And I even carry this through in other areas of life where I work well when shit hits the fan. So now I had to create the conditions in my life subconsciously that shit would hit the fan. So now I have to act. So now I'm constantly in this rise, this ebb and flow of spikes and valleys of shit hits the fan. Now I'm acting, and then the pain goes away. I don't have then the pressure's off. So when the pressure's off, I stop taking that continuous action. So it becomes this almost self-fulfilling prophecy of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's like you got to remember that feeling, because that's where you understand that if you don't get that, if you don't complete that task at that specific moment, you won't
Mm-hmm.
get any more chances to do it. So then at that specific moment, Tone, that's where the adrenaline kicks in, and then you know what happens? Your performance, man, fucking skyrockets, dude. That's how it goes. And then here's the thing too. You don't have to, you guys, I know Coach Tone and we're just bantering here and going back and forth on some stuff, but you don't always have to wait to the last possible minute to even get this flow of efficiency to occur. All you got to do is start with doing a task, and you'll catch the wave of productivity, momentum, and then start a job. Like starting the job for most of us, like when Coach Tone built his framework, when I built mine, that part sucks. Like that's the most difficult, but it's a part of doing something. And then what it does is you force yourself to leave a state of leisure and kind of delve into like a work phase. Sometimes that feels nearly impossible. So what you do is then you develop a habit of leaping into a productive mindset state, which then kind of skyrockets and gives you that momentum. And Coach Tone, and here's the thing, you guys, Coach Tone and myself are here to help you. Like that's just what it is. Tone, you got anything else before we go into our conclusion here?
Yeah, a couple of things that you just keyword that you mentioned is habits, right? And you start developing those habits, and you have to take that first action to build those habits, right? Um, so here's something to help with, again, going back to procrastination. There's a principle. It's called Parkinson's law, and the reason why I bring this up is oftentimes we give ourselves too much time. And this goes back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago about turning in our papers or our homework in at the very last minute, or waiting till the last minute to get something done. Is oftentimes we give ourselves too much time to do a thing. And so that gives us room and excuse to procrastinate, because I'm like, I got time. I got time. So Parkinson's law states that we will generally take as much time to do a thing as we give ourselves. So here's a quick analogy. If I give myself the weekend to clean my apartment, right? Or to do my laundry, I'm going to wait until Sunday to get it done. But if I give myself till the end of this afternoon, or I give myself 3 hours, let's say, to clean my apartment or to do my laundry, I'm going to, and I make that non-negotiable. I set that standard for myself. I give myself a shorter window to operate in. I'm going to get it done quicker. And I can get it done Friday instead of Sunday, right? So you can set shorter time limits for yourself. Now, most of us on a bigger scale, most of us way overestimate what we can accomplish in a year, and we way underestimate how much we can accomplish in 3 or 5 or 10. But it's that compounding effect of taking that continuous action, of doing that 1% better, whatever the case is. Now, as we wrap up, my last parting thought before I turn it back over to you is we talk so much about identities and I am statements and affirmations, and we have positive affirmations and we have negative affirmations. I'm not good enough. I'm too old. I'm too young. I'm too broke. I don't. All these different things that we tell ourselves of who we are. We embody these things. I'm just not that person. I'm not a gym person. I'm not a salesperson. I'm not whatever it is that we're talking about here. Oftentimes, people identify with traits when they're not inherent traits. So like, I'm a procrastinator. Now, if this is you and you say, I'm a procrastinator, this is just who I am. That's basically just accepting almost defeat. And this is just who I am and how I operate. Now, here's a shift for you. I have a habit of procrastination.
Oh, I like it.
That's it. You just have a habit of procrastinating. It's just a habit. And when you do that, you take away your identity from that negative or detrimental trait, and you just put it as an object. It's a thing. It's something that can be solved because habits can be implemented and habits can be removed.
Mhm.
And all you have to do is implement positive habits to overcome the procrastination, which is what Coach Mike and I have been doing here today. And that also takes a little bit of the pressure off yourself because how often are we so self-deprecating?
Mm.
I'm a procrastinator. I'll never get these things done. It's just the way life is. That's why I don't guess why I'm not successful. Whatever. We are who we say we are.
No.
So that's what I have to believe, folks. If this is you, you are not a procrastinator. You just have a habit of procrastination. And I wish you speed and success. And hopefully you implement some of this value that we've been dropping here today.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Beautifully said, Tone. I just want to leave this some small nuggets for our listeners. You guys, take time to establish values and priorities for tasks you have to perform to maximize your efficiency. And here's what I basically mean. Here's some homework for you guys because I always like to give some homework and some ideas here. Write down the goals you want to achieve across the three essential areas of your life. And I talked about this earlier. The three areas, again, are your health. So write down three essential areas of your life in your health that you want to achieve. Okay. Family. And then lastly, your career. I think that's what I got for everybody. I hope you guys really enjoyed today's podcast about learning to overcome that P word, that procrastination word. Coach Stone spit out some gold nuggets to you guys. I did as well. Until next time, tune us. Hey, if you guys like what you heard today, please spread the word. Give us a 5-star rating. Give us a review. We've been reading your emails, so thank you so much. That's why we're back on live. We're going on YouTube Live. We appreciate the feedback. We appreciate the love, you guys. As always, Coach Tone, 1% better in mind, body, and soul. And
Stay flexed.
flexed. All right.
And live is done.